Hello and welcome to Mythology, where we take Disney movies a little too seriously in an ongoing attempt to trace them to their most accurate historical settings. I'm Austin Wrathall, history teacher and lifelong Disney devotee, and today we are taking on a movie that is both very historical and very unhistorical at the same time. We're talking about Hercules. Of all the Disney movies that reference real history, Hercules probably has the most real history in it. And this is a movie that references real architecture, real artwork, real time periods, real places. And yet, if you thought that that would make it easy to determine Hercules' historical setting, I've got two words for you. You are mistaken. See what I did there? It's a little fill thing, like from the movie, because we're talking about that movie. It shouldn't surprise anyone to hear that Hercules is set in ancient Greece. But what might surprise you is just how many references to Greek history and culture made it into the movie. There are a lot of them. However, ancient Greece as a civilization lasted for hundreds of years, almost 1,000 years actually. And so we need to know when in that really long timeline Hercules fits. Lucky for us, directors Ron Clements and John Musker were absolutely devoted to making Hercules as historically accurate as humanly possible. Just kidding.
We call this thing sort of an epic comedy, so playing comedy against people's expectations of Greek mythology, which are often kind of stuffy or something academic, and we tried to make it very contemporary. And
John Musker and Ron Clements, our directors and writers, are some of the funniest people I've ever worked with.
Yeah?
And certainly their signature is that kind of zany, irreverent, anachronistic comedy.
Okay, so Hercules is obviously not a documentary. But there are a lot of clues that we can look at to determine when in the history of ancient Greece Hercules takes place. So let's dive in and examine some of the evidence. Clue number 1, mythology. Just in case there's anyone out there who needs any convincing that this is a movie that takes place in Greece, the number of characters that come from Greek mythology in the film should leave no doubt. We have the Muses, the Fates, the Greek gods, and the Titans. All of these are characters from the actual mythology of Greece, and we even have characters that come specifically from the original Hercules myth, including Hercules himself, but also Megara, Nessus the centaur, and Herc's mortal parents Alcmene and Amphitryon. Even the city of Thebes is part of the original Hercules myth. In the myth, that's where Hercules was born. In the movie, it's where he does his first hero work. And Thebes was actually a real city in Greece. Probably the most famous Hercules story is the tale of his 12 labors, and the movie shows or references almost all 12.
He's got a problem with his stables. I'd advise you not to wear your new sandals. At 3, you gotta get a girdle from some Amazon.
Clue number 2, heroes and history. One scene in the movie is really crucial to determining Hercules' time period. It's the scene where Hercules goes and meets Phil for the first time, and Phil, who's a bit of a name dropper, talks about all the different heroes that he's already trained up to this point.
Watch it! That was part of the Master of the Argo.
The Argo?
Who do you think taught Jason how to sail? Cleopatra? I trained all those would-be heroes. Odysseus, Perseus, Theseus. A lot of yusses. And every single one of those bums let me down, flatter than a discus. None of them could go the distance. And then there was Achilles. Now there was a guy who had it all. The build, the foot speed. He could jab, he could take a hit, he could keep on coming. But that flush slug in the heel of his!
Let's start with Perseus. According to mythology, he founded ancient Mycenae in 1600 BC. So Hercules can't take place any earlier than that. The story of Jason and the Argonauts took place around 1300 BC, so the movie can't take place any earlier than that. Theseus had his adventures a generation before the Trojan War, and Achilles fought in the Trojan War. According to Eratosthenes, that war happened around 1183 BC, which means the movie can't take place earlier than that. Then Phil mentions Cleopatra. Now this one's interesting. The famous Cleopatra that most people know was actually Cleopatra VII, and she died around 30 BC. Cleopatra I lived a lot earlier, and she died around 176 BC. So according to that, Hercules could take place anywhere between the 2nd century BC and 30 BC, or even afterwards. So that is what we know from all of the heroes that Phil mentions in that scene. But there's another scene that suggests that Hercules might take place earlier in Greek history. When Hercules and Phil first go to Thebes, the city has clearly fallen on some hard times.
It was tragic. We lost everything in the fire.
Now, what are fires before or after the earthquake?
They were after the earthquake, I remember.
But before the flood.
Don't even get me started on the crime rate.
Hercules fixes things up for a while, but then later, towards the end of the movie, the Titans come through and they destroy everything again. Now, if you've studied ancient Greece, this might sound kind of familiar. Around 1200 BC, the early Greek civilization began sort of falling apart. There were fires, floods, high crime rates, and other disasters. Thebes was actually destroyed, then people rebuilt it, and then it was quickly destroyed again, which is basically what we see happen in the movie. So the Greek Dark Age, from around 1200 BC to about 750 BC, appears to be a really good candidate for the movie's time period. However, we are not done yet. Clue number 3, art and architecture. The reason why art and architecture are so important to determining the time period of the movie is because there are buildings and artwork in the film that didn't exist during the Greek Dark Ages. They were made later. For example, the Temple of Zeus, where Hercules reunites with his father for the first time. As you can imagine, Zeus was a pretty big deal to the ancient Greeks, and they built him more than one temple. The one in the movie looks a lot like the Temple of Zeus at Olympia, which housed a great statue of Zeus, just like the one that we see in the film. That temple was built in the 5th century BC, so Hercules must take place sometime after that. On their first date, Hercules and Megara go to see a very famous Greek play.
First that restaurant by the bay, and then that play, that Oedipus thing? Man, I thought I had problems.
Oedipus Rex debuted in 430 BC. So once again, we need to bump Hercules forward in time, and we're not done going forward yet. Right after the play, Hercules breaks the most famous sculpture of all time.
Whoops.
It looks better that way. No, it really does.
Scholars have debated when the sculptor of the Venus de Milo, whoever he was, made the statue, and the latest consensus is that it comes from around 100 BC. So, once again, we must bump Hercules forward on the timeline to a period where Greece was under new management. We're talking about the Roman times. Clue number 4, Roman numerals. In 146 BC, the Romans conquered Greece, and Greece became part of the Roman Empire. But life in Greece pretty much went on the same as before, so it's hard to verify whether Hercules could take place in Roman times. If only there were some clue in the movie that told us that there were Romans around.
Hurry! Hurry! Get us down! We're suffocating! Somebody call IXII!
That's right, Pain and Panic are using Roman numerals, not Greek. Also, you know the amphitheater where Hercules and Pegasus go and they put their handprints in the cement, like they do at Grauman's Chinese Theater? Well, that's actually a real place, it's a real amphitheater, and the Greeks built it during the reign of Caesar Augustus, during this exact time period. And animators also visited that amphitheater on their research trip that they made prior to making the movie. That tells us that the earliest possible time period for the movie Hercules is the reign of Caesar Augustus in the 1st century AD. And we know that the movie couldn't take place too long after that because by the 4th century AD, the Romans were stamping out all non-Christian religions. In other words, if this movie took place after the 4th century, we wouldn't see a temple of Zeus and we wouldn't hear people talking about the Greek gods because every religion that wasn't Christianity was going away. After reviewing the evidence, I'm dating the movie Hercules to ancient Greece, circa 200 CE. So, what did you think of my conclusions? Do you think Hercules takes place in Roman times, the Dark Ages, some other time period? Please let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if you have any evidence that contradicts my findings. I would love to hear it and review that evidence as well. Also, please tell me which Disney movie you would like me to analyze next. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.